In this video, I'm going to show you how to add little feet to your pinch pot. This video is definitely for people if you're making an animal and you need 4 legs for your animal, or if you just want a design that has 3 to 4 feet on your pinch pot if you don't want to do kind of the ring foot. So what you're going to start with is a nice thick coil. And so whether you're doing rounded feet or kind of squared off feet, I'll show you guys how to do both. But you want to start with a nice thick coil. Depending on how big you want your feet to be, will be the thickness of your coil. I definitely suggest not going any thinner than your needle tool. Even going to the thickness of your needle tool, the handle is going to be a little too thin, so I would go a little bit thicker than that just to make sure that they're stable. So mine is about, cut off one of the ends, maybe a little bit thicker than 1/2 inch, and that's okay. You don't want to go any thicker than 1 inch because that's going to be way too thick and it's going to take too long for the clay to dry. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that your coil is a nice even thickness all the way across, the thickness that you want it to be, and then you want to cut off one of the ends like I did so you have a nice clean flat cut. If I hadn't cut that off, I would have this messy looking end, and that's not what you want. So you want a nice clean cut right there. Then you're going to decide, okay, say I'm doing a cow or an animal. I need 4 little legs that are all the same height. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark kind of how tall I want them to be. So depending on your design, they may be taller or smaller than this. And I'm trying to do mine about the same height because again, we don't want it to be to where one leg shorter than the other. If you want to, you can use a ruler or you can just eyeball it. I'm going to take my needle tool and I'm going to cut each of those for each of my legs. And now I've got my legs that I will be putting onto my coil pot, or not my coil pot, my pinch pot. And as you cut these, you'll notice that they'll flatten out a little bit on the bottom because of the pressure of the needle tool against the table. So just take the time to kind of make those nice and round again and figure out, okay, where do I want to place these? Something else you can do is when you're kind of getting these back to the shape they were, just lightly tap them on the table, each side, top and bottom, so that they start to even out a little bit. So I'll do that with these ones. And so you can keep them rounded like this depending on your design. And mine are actually pretty tall. I would probably do these shorter. But also it depends on your design. Figure out where you want these to go. You want them to be nicely evenly spaced on your pinch pot. And figure out, do you want them to be straight up or do you want them to be at an angle? And then the other thing, if you want to create feet that are squared off, all you have to do is just take your circular coil, tap it on one side on the table, tap it again, kind of keep rotating and tapping it, and you will see that it will start to square off. Then you can use your fingers a little bit to kind of manipulate it that way too. So if you want one that's more squared like this and not so circular, that's how you can do that. So once you have your feet, the height you want them, the placement that you want them, what I always do is take my needle tool and I mark where they're supposed to go. So I'm just going to lightly draw around so I know exactly where these are going to go. We want to make sure that they're evenly spaced, that it works with your design. Always want to add your foot first before you do any decorating on the outside, just because you could potentially mess up anything that's decorated on the outside. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these off and I'm going to score and slip to attach them. scoring at each of the attachment sites. Can't really see my lines anymore, but that's okay because I can see exactly where I scored. There we go. It's my squared one. And I can see I have them there. And so now something you want to do to make sure that they're fully attached is you want to blend your coils into your pinch pot. And what you're going to do when you do that is you're going to take your wooden modeling tool and you want to use the curved side on the clay, not the side that's curved up. You want to use the side that's kind of curved this way. And you're going to just pull some of the clay from your coil down onto your pinch pot. And so we're not pulling a bunch of it. Sometimes it's easier to kind of do this one at a time. So if you need to, you can just do this one at a time so you can get it fully attached. And then it's going to look a little messy at first. That's okay. So what you can do is take your finger with some water and rub over that area to get it to where it looks nice and smooth. Just like that. So then you'll repeat that process with the rest of your feet. All right, and then once you have that nice and cleaned up and the feet are adjusted the way you want them to be, whether they're straight up and down or angled out to the sides, then what you're going to do is we're going to make sure that the top or all the feet are level. So you're going to take your pinch pot, you're going to flip it over so that the feet are facing down on the table. I would get down and get eye level with it, and you're going to very lightly tap. The feet on the table. So I'm not pushing down really hard. I'm just kind of tapping. And what that's going to do is it's going to even out all the feet. Look how they're nice and flat now on the bottom. It's going to make sure that they all sit on the table well and so that it's not lopsided. And then once you're done with that and you feel like your pinch pot is standing well, you always kind of want to test it out, make sure it's standing really well. Then what you're going to do is you're going to let those feet dry a little bit. So you can either use a hair dryer to kind of speed up the drying process on the feet to where they become about leather hard, or just enough to the point where if you were to press down into this with your finger, it wouldn't squish the clay. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to store your pinch pot like this while the clay is wet, because the weight of the pinch pot is going to press down on these feet and it's going to squish them down and make it so that they are and kind of to start to deform them, and it's going to shorten them and squish them. So you want to make sure that if you're done with this and you're like, okay, I'm ready to wrap it up, you're going to wrap it up in your bag, and then you're going to store it this way so that it is sitting on the lip and not the feet, because the feet will get squished. And then once you feel like it's strong enough to be held on the feet, you can store it that way. But until then, I would always make sure you store it on the lip.